Today on Learn Me Something
The Feather Thief
versus
Forest restoration.
Okay, last time we talked, I was in Montana, but now I'm living in Arizona, Caleb.
Yeah, because why not, right? You might as well be.
Why not? Yeah, little update, life update. We're living here for anywhere from 2 to 4 months. It's the future is to be seen.
Keeping it nice
Based
and
on
uncertain, I see.
Abby's job. Yeah. You take it 1 month at a time. That seems generous, actually.
One full month
yeah.
seems like a lot.
Yeah, it does. Like, you need more time to figure out what to do next? I don't know.
If you're watching
generous to
the
me.
podcast instead of listening to it, enjoy my. I hope you enjoy my headphones. We had to switch things up since.
Do you have one off, one on too?
No, I've
Like
both on because I am piping some of my voice into my headphones too because I figured out some cool tech things. But my headphones are like falling apart, like the padded part on the top, what rests on the top of your head, is like flaking.
Yeah.
So I wrapped it with a cheesy looking buff. So now I look like I've got a bonnet or something. So if you're watching, just
Okay,
enjoy.
it's cute, like a bow tie.
Yeah, just a
Big old Minnie Mouse bow tie up
nice
there.
little floof on top to keep the powdery grossness from
Yeah, that's
falling
fun.
all over my body.
That's fun. I got something a little more put together, but also I look a little disheveled. So together
This is a real
together
podcast.
we got it going.
You know it's real
every
when
single
you-
time
Yep.
we're like, I'm ready to go. Oops, we have issues.
Wait, how do we do
We
this
still
again?
haven't figured out how to do this.
Yeah. And it's not
One day,
a real
one day.
podcast until you have no idea what you're doing constantly.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
Fill us in. We've got some stuff to establish, some things to say.
what do you mean? You got stuff to stay right now?
No, we as a team have things to say
Oh, we do.
regarding podcasting.
Yes, I moved to Arizona here for a little bit, enjoying the sunny weather. That's established. I'm establishing where I am.
Okay,
Is that
good.
what you mean?
Yeah.
Or you just mean getting on with the episode?
A little bit. We've got punishment things to discuss.
Oh yeah,
We've got. Actually, that's it. That's the only thing we have to
Okay.
talk about.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is, let's do the episode.
All right, let's do it. For the new listener, real quick, this is a competitive teaching podcast where we each come up with a topic, teach the other person, and then we have the listeners decide who wins and who loses each episode. And the loser has to do some kind of punishment. And sometimes there's a rare case where we both tie. And so in that case, we've just decided we'll both do the punishment.
Yeah.
There's no winner. So that is the case for for this last episode where the punishment was a podcaster's morning routine. So I don't remember if we talked about it at the end of the last episode.
I don't think we went into specifics. So
Okay,
maybe
so
we can
here's-
do.
Yeah, here's the specifics. You have to wake up at 5 a.m. and get up immediately. No snooze. No laying there thinking about how early it is. You just get up, stretch, work out, take
The
a cold
stretch one is
shower,
funny.
stretch immediately. I don't stretch. Do you stretch?
Yeah, working out, showering, reading, all the things that are going to be in this are things that I typically do just much later in the day. But
Right.
stretching is just like, nope. That's going to be a completely new addition. for me.
Okay. That's fine. It might be life-changing. You might be able to do the splits after this. You might be able to
I hope.
walk up and just... I've always had a dream where I would be able to walk up to somebody, just do the splits right then and there, and pop back up, and then introduce myself. I'm Josiah.
Hi, I'm Split Josiah.
Just down and up real quick. I would love to do that. So maybe this is the first part of my journey to getting that done.
That would be a funny punishment is you have to
Oh, a long-term one.
You have to work until you're able to do the splits. That would be a long term.
That would be a lot. That would be a lot. But
Yeah.
it's very. We could do it. But
Anything's
for
on the
this
table.
for this one, you only have to do it for a week, and then so it's stretch, workout, cold shower, then get fully dressed, then read and have breakfast at 6:30. Then you're ready for the day by 7:30.
Ooh.
So it's a 2.5 hour morning routine. You do quite a bit in there, but you have to get up at 5. So we're both gonna do it, and we'll compare notes next episode, I guess.
Yeah, maybe film some progress videos.
Yeah.
And
It'll be something.
we were talking about this before we hit record. This might be the first punishment that's just like truly healthy for us, like a good healthy thing to do.
Yeah, like the next, like a punishment is eat the recommended daily serving of vegetables. Ugh.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Ugh. No, never. That's too far. The day we do that as a punishment is the day that I cancel the show.
Okay, it's over. The season finale.
Eat your vegetables.
Accidental season finale. How are you feeling about this podcast? Are you a little bit excited, mostly nervous? What are you thinking?
I think I'm mostly excited. I was researching for one topic, and it was, I don't know. I was a little back and forth about it, and then I found this other one. I think it's just like good old uplifting. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good ride, and I'm excited for it.
Good.
How are you feeling?
Good. I'm ready to go.
Are
Ready
you
to go, baby.
coming with the heat?
Mm-hmm.
Also, for those of you watching video, my phone, which is recording the video, is precariously placed and keeps shifting. So sorry if I just keep reaching and wiggling things around. I'm not texting. I'm trying to make the video
You feel like
good experience.
if you're watching, you might feel like Caleb's reaching out to like grab you or something. He's not.
Yeah. I'm trying to
keep that
make
in
this
mind.
feel like a 3D flick if you're watching.
Oh, like those old timey commercials where they do something 3D in the movie and then the entire crowd goes, ah!
Whoa! Yeah, exactly.
I love those.
And then they all laugh as a family a little bit too heartily.
Oh, that was not real.
Okay, here's the question, Josiah.
Yeah. Yep.
We tied. I don't
Who
know
goes
who goes
first?
first. How do
I
we
don't either.
decide?
Would you like to go first or would you like me to go first? Your choice today.
You know, how about this? I went first. I'm pretty sure I went first last episode.
Okay.
I will bestow upon you the pleasure of going first.
Thank you.
As a saintly friend that I am.
That's very kind.
Yeah.
That's what
go
I was
for it.
hoping you would say. My plan worked out
Oh.
exactly as I was hoping. Okay. I'm going to start off with a question for you then, as we often
Please.
do. What do you know about fly fishing?
Fly fishing?
Yeah.
I know. Oh no, if my dad listens to this and I get answers wrong here, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I do know things. I would say I know more than the average human about fly
Okay.
fishing. But
Okay.
not
What
an expert.
yeah, what kind of stuff, what pops in your mind as we talk about
First-
fly fishing?
First things first, you need a fly rod. It's not a fishing pole, it's a fly rod. Totally
Yeah.
different thing.
Okay.
Second, you need a fly. And you can either have a dry fly or a nymph. A dry fly sits on top of the water and you watch it float by, and then a fish will swim up to the surface and bite it. And that's when you know you've got a fish, because you see it happen.
Because you see
And,
a fish grab your fly.
Yeah.
Dry
And,
fly.
run out into the river and just grab it. Don't use the rod. No. And
Okay.
nymph is it sinks. So then you have a little bobber, a little little floaty boy halfway up your line that you watch that, and then if you catch a fish, the bobber goes under, or the little I don't know what they call it. They don't call it a bobber in fly fishing, I don't think.
Ooh,
It's
strike
like
one.
a little foam neon orange thing
Okay.
that sticks to your line and it acts exactly like a bobber does. So you really should just call it a bobber.
Okay. That's like it is what it is, but people get uptight if you call it the wrong thing. Is that kind of
Sure.
the situation?
Maybe. I don't know very much. Hopefully
Okay.
your topic is not explaining how fly fishing works, because I feel like I just
My topic
stole it.
is asking you. It's basically a fly fishing quiz for you.
Oh, okay. Was
So
that
get
the
ready.
one question?
There's like 99 more. I had it just like a nice even 100.
Perfect.
So
Well, I got number 1 right, which is
Buckle
what do
up.
you know about fly fishing?
no. Today we're going to be diving into the world of Victorian salmon fly tying. Do you know much about this?
No, absolutely nothing.
Okay.
My
Oh,
dad
excellent.
does a lot of tie flying. Sorry,
Fly
fly tying.
Tie flying. Is that where like you
That's a
attach
Star Wars
a
thing.
kite string to your tie and then you like throw your tie up in the air?
He does a lot of fly tying in the
Got
winters
it.
when you can't really do much outside. And so I've seen that process, but I know nothing about the words you just said.
Does he use these flies that he ties?
Yeah, I do too. He'll tie them, and then we'll both use them. It's pretty fun. He
Oh, there you
makes
go.
mostly like simple patterns. If you get really into fly fishing, it's crazy. Like there's so many things you can do, and like hundreds of different types of flies, and you have to try to see what the flies are around the river so that you can mimic them with what you're fishing with. It's a whole thing.
Okay. Keep that in mind. The use and the
'Kay.
like the practical purpose of it. Keep it in mind.
Okay.
So Victorian salmon fly tying is something different. It's different than that. Somewhat
'Kay.
similar, but we'll get into it. This is an art form that people really, really get into, and
Okay.
sometimes they will stop at nothing to create their
Oh.
salmon flies.
That feels like an intense foreboding sentence.
So we got a story today. Back in the
I
day,
love stories.
let's go like pretty far back. Kind of get
'Kay.
more into understand what is this art form. Back in the day,
'Kay.
people used to create their own recipes for flies, and I'm sure people still do today. Like you're mentioning, you kind of like
Sure.
see what's around. You can make it different colors, different materials.
Sure.
To try and catch fish better. Trout flies apparently are made to resemble the insects that trout love to eat, and it doesn't take as much to create those. They're just some of those materials, at least back in the day, that they used to use were like chicken feathers, rabbit fur, wool, elk hair,
Love it.
which you can just go anywhere and grab just a handful of wool. Or
Yeah.
you could just
My dad
pick
uses
just-
lots of wool and lots of elk hair, I believe.
pick some elk hair off. I don't know, just walk outside, grab some elk hair, and then go on your
Go
merry
find
way.
your nearest elk and give him a haircut.
Yeah, just a handful is fine. It comes out easy. So salmon flies, on the other hand, which is what we're talking about today,
Yeah.
is a very different thing. So these flies are meant to look like a predator to be used when salmon are laying their eggs. So they're going after it not
Oh.
as a source of food, but as protection, trying to protect their eggs. So honestly,
Interesting.
apparently you don't need much to make a salmon fly. I've heard stories like in Alaska where you just line up on the river on the shore and just shoulder to shoulder with people. You're just throwing in a hook. You're just whipping it out, and there's a fish on the end.
Just
like-
snagging them. Snagging them
Yeah.
left and right.
Yeah. So apparently there's not a huge art to salmon fly tying because it's just different. They're not as picky. They're just, oh, it looks foreign, attack.
Get it. Yeah.
So with that being said, I got another question for you.
Hit me, please.
What is the purpose of fly fishing for you? What's the draw to it? Why do you enjoy it when you do go? What's the draw?
I'll answer for me, and I'll answer for my dad, because I feel like probably they're a little different.
Okay.
my answer is I just love being outside and I love being in the water, and like standing in a river is super cool and refreshing, and it's a fun activity to do while enjoying that environment. My dad, on the other hand, I would say enjoys fly fishing because he loves the strategy of figuring out what the fish are into and finding the perfect fishing hole. So like, ooh, look at that bank on the far side of the river. I think that you've got the water, it's deep there, but then there's some rocks behind it. So you've got this kind of the end of this white water. So I think the fish are holed up in there. He likes he likes the hunt, the thrill of the hunt.
Got it. The sport.
Yeah, and the strategy and yeah, exactly, the techniques and stuff. I mostly just enjoy being out there, hanging out.
Okay.
And
okay.
I like fly fishing. I like catching a fish because it's fun
Yeah.
to like.
Yeah.
I got a fish on. Reel it in. And then you're like, ooh, it's fighting me. This is a big one, and then it never is. But I like.
But
that.
it's part of the draw. It's to pretend.
It's
the
it's
lie.
the experience.
Yeah.
The lie, exactly.
Okay, so I think that's a lot of the reasons you're saying why your dad is more into it seems to be that's kind of what I've heard. It's like the sport. It's just there's a lot to it, and it's just fun to get better at it. So back in the day, it was like a elite thing. So the upper class, the rich guys would be the ones.
It's like
doing all the fly fishing.
golf. The golfers.
Yeah, sure. That's a good comparison. And so they wanted to kind of keep it for the upper class. There's a lot of people starting to pick up on the sport, and they would just go out and fish. And they're like, no, this is an upper class thing.
This is for the rich folk only.
And so they eventually started buying land and fencing off rivers and creating fishing clubs.
Ugh.
And they did a decent job at keeping the salmon fishing thing for the upper class. And this is specifically in England.
This feels like a crime.
A crime?
Yeah.
To like keep it upper class? Yeah, I would agree.
Or it's like to take a river and say, I'm the only one allowed on this part of the river. Feels wrong.
I don't know. People
Land,
did it.
Sure, you can buy, but rivers, fair game. Float through it, do whatever you want. That's my opinion.
All right. You can take this up with those guys. I'm pretty sure they're all dead now.
Sounds good.
I don't even know what they're doing these days. Probably buried underground. So I think maybe I don't know. I think we're good. Anyway,
maybe just let it go.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm talking about dead guys again. So people started creating their own fly recipes, and they made it into an art form. And since it was like an upper class thing, they were using like fancy and exotic and rare feathers, and doing all these really intricate details to create these salmon fly ties. But it really doesn't do anything. Like there's no difference between using a really specific fancy rare feather than just some dog fur or whatever, you know?
It's like, to take it back to golf. Also, I'm not a golfer. I don't know.
I'm not either. I've never been, but I know golf thoroughly.
I would imagine that, I could be wrong, but I'm going to venture a guess that if one was good at golfing, he could go out in cargo shorts and a tank top and outperform an average Joe wearing the richest of golf clothes. The fancy tapered pants and the polo that just for some reason is more expensive than it should be.
Yeah.
That's
the Lulu.
That's how I choose the what?
Lululemon?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
I don't know if I would have.
Don't people call it Lulu?
I think they do. I've just never thought of
Yeah,
Lululemon as like, yes, this is golf attire.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I just know it's really expensive. That's the first thing that popped in my mind is because I went into a store and I was like, oh, this is like nice material. and then you look at the price and it's like $600,000 for a T-shirt.
I think Lululemon's more like fitness.
Oh,
I guess I
okay.
could. But the point
I'm sure
is the
there's
same.
golf
You
attire. Yeah, same. Yeah,
Gulu. Anyway,
Gulu.
that's my
Gulu is the
analogy.
golf brand.
Maybe I'll just see
Okay.
how many golf metaphors I can use.
Okay,
This
just throw them in.
episode.
Just yeah, put them. I don't know. Drive them home.
So anyway,
Okay. So even though these rare feathers don't do anything special, it becomes this exclusive art form. The more money you have, the more valuable these flies are.
sure.
And so here's to give you an example of the type of intricacy that some of these flies require. Here's some recipes. So here's a recipe for a Jock Scott salmon fly.
One of
You
my
need,
favorites, probably.
Golden pheasant, toucan, guinea fowl, peacock, and gray jungle
What?
fowl.
That's ridiculous.
And then here for a Durham Ranger salmon fly, you need a blue macaw, a golden pheasant's crest, a chatterer, and an Indian crow. So like
Why do
people
I feel
get
like my
really
dad-
into this. Does he know
Yeah.
about this? You should definitely ask him about this immediately.
I'm gonna for sure make him listen to this episode. Not that he does. He listens to all of them anyway. I'm pretty sure. But I'm gonna make sure he listens to this one.
Okay. Okay, good.
That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Also, flies are the dumbest thing to get really expensive ones because you lose if you're as bad as I am at fly fishing. You lose like 5 every time you go out.
Well, here's the thing. People don't fish with these. It's become so much of an art form that it's just the craft. These don't touch the water. They go in a case and they're put on the wall. That's what happens with these Victorian salmon flies.
That's. I think I'm more on board with that than using them to fish, but
Okay.
still ridiculous.
Yeah. So like super tiny, intricate. Like there was, I heard about one that used like it needed like 100 ingredients, like a very specific type of hook.
Oh my
And
goodness.
like this type of wax that needs to go on it. So it's very intricate. Think of like ship in a bottle type of art. Like not everybody can just do this. And it's very fine and small.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's Victorian salmon fly tying. And before, like I said, people get really into this. So before we dive deeper into the real meat of my topic, we need to meet somebody. So his
Okay.
name, he's right through this door. Come on in. No,
oh,
imagine.
it's like what? No,
No,
way.
So our main character today is this kid named Edwin Wrist.
Wow, he was
Okay.
designed to be a fly fisherman, or
With a name like
a
Edwin.
disc golf player.
Oh, because of wrist.
Something wrist related.
Sure. A golf, maybe.
Yeah.
Come on, golf. Golf
Man,
joke.
I missed
Come
an
on.
opportunity.
Okay. So he was born in New York. He's a smart kid from this smart family. Both his parents were Ivy League grads and worked as writers. And so to give you an idea of like his growing up, he and his brother rarely watched TV. Their papa would read them the Iliad as a bedtime story. And like one time he got super into learning about snakes, so his parents hired this famous herpetologist at the American Museum of Natural History as his personal tutor. And
That's a wild lifestyle.
yeah, very focused on education. And in his first grade music class, which was like recorders, the music teacher told his parents that he's so good that they signed him up for private lessons, private recorder lessons in first grade. And eventually he
suspicious.
transitioned to flute.
The natural progression, or piccolo.
Yeah. Right. Something small and high pitched.
Clarinet.
And he had he was the type to dive deep into these hobbies and interests. And one day he was watching TV and saw this guy tying this fly and just loved the intricate detail and the art form of it. And both him and his brother became obsessed with it. They took classes, they went to meetups, they learned from experts.
They're sold.
They're all in, and what
Love
are they
it.
like? I think 11 at this point. So he was very good at it too. Edwin, he made friends with a lot of the well-known tires, and
Of course.
also became known on the internet, like forums and message boards, like all in Victorian salmon fly tying. At 16, he earned an associate's degree, and at 20, he was accepted into the Royal Academy of Music in London. And so he kind of put this hobby on hold. He said, I'll come back to the fly tying maybe someday. But now my true passion is playing flute, and I get this chance to do it at the Royal Academy of Music in London. So he goes there to do that. And having been fly tying for like 10 years at this point, he has this friend that mentions at the British Natural History Museum, there's this like offshoot of it that's kind of more in this rural area, and they house a ton of preserved bird species. It's like a couple hour train ride from London where he's going to school.
Sure.
And so this let me just he has this idea. He says, there's always been this really nice golden flute that I've always wanted.
As every young man's dream is.
Yeah. Do you remember when you first had the golden flute dream?
It was a hard phase to get out of. You know?
Yeah.
We could never quite afford it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's rough because it's just out of reach, but you're holding on so tight that you want this golden flute.
Exactly. And that dream came directly after the noodle dream. It was just that didn't work out either. So it was just kind of like two losses in a row for me. But
okay,
that's his life.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a huge bummer. But I've been there. Yeah, we all have. So you'll get over it.
Yep.
So his parents' Labradoodle breeding business was also not thriving at the moment. They were hurting on money. So
These
he thought
people
to himself,
are a lot for me to handle.
too much. They breed Labradors and they're freelance writers. That's too much.
A little bit. And
Okay.
just the whole lifestyle is a bit much for me.
Okay. What's too much?
But I'm invested. The general like, oh, you like snakes? Here's a full snake tutor. Or, oh, your teacher said you were somewhat okay at recorder. Here's going to be your life path for the next 10 years.
Okay.
It's just like, it's a lot.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, it sounds like you're going through some stuff on this episode. Man, okay.
No. I'm back in. I'm invested. I want to know what happens.
Okay. Yeah, let's get back into it then. So he has this idea. What if I could sell those feathers from that museum to fly tires online? How much would they be willing to pay on the black market?
Oh, no.
So he says, I am going to steal some birds. It's time.
No, he's not.
So this feller, here's his plan. He's going to break into the British Natural History Museum. It's in this small town called Tring. And how did they get these feathers? Let me tell you. In the late 1800s, this is where the largest private collection of bird skins in the world was housed.
Sure.
And it was owned by Walter Rothschild. Have you ever heard of the Rothschilds?
Sounds familiar, but I can't place it.
They're like one of the richest families in the world, but they somewhat keep a low profile. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about them.
Ooh.
Old money, just pure old-fashioned old
wealth.
money. Exactly. Yep. So anyway, that guy, he was super into bird skins, had a huge collection.
Okay.
And this was during the time that women would wear all sorts of these crazy feathers in their hats, like the kind of the same thing. The rarer, the more extravagant, the better.
Sure.
The more high fashion. So
sure.
Yeah.
So this was a lucrative collection for him.
Yeah, but it also made some of these birds more valuable because the population's declining. They're more rare.
Yeah.
Partly to, I believe, to kind of protect the birds also is some of the idea. So they like tagged them. Scientists were involved, and he just owned them.
Okay.
So since rare bird feathers were so popular, they banned the feather trade to protect some of those species back in the day. And eventually
Good.
that whole collection was donated to the museum for study in the future at some point. And right now, or at the time, it was still one of the largest collections in the world.
Okay.
So back to his plan. And when he goes to the museum, he was given access to look at the specimens because they're like, yeah, you can come look at the birds. It's just some kid who's interested in bird skins. Yeah, come on. This is what a museum is for.
Never trust a
so-
kid that's interested in bird skins. That's what I've
You heard
always
it here
said.
first. People have told me that, or not to my face, but to other people, but I hear it.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
like, they think I'm into bird skins, but I'm not, but whatever. So anyway, he takes a few photos. The guy that lets him in's like, yeah, just take your time. Let me know when you're done. He takes a few photos, looks for security cameras and windows, maps it all out.
Yeah,
He's got his
classic
plan.
robber stuff.
Plan is ready. He sees this window he's going to come into. So 7 months later, he orders a diamond glass cutter on eBay using this account called, I want you to guess what his eBay account name is. It's not
Flutist.
Edwin Wrist. Golden Flutist?
Sorry, excuse me. Flautist.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I was about to just shut this whole thing down. So his account that he buys this glass cutter on is Flute Player 1988.
It's perfect. It's the
It's the perfect crime. You know how many flute players are born in 1988?
Literally
A
zero.
lot.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I mean a lot.
Oh, okay. So the one night he decides tonight's the night. He takes the train
doing
to
it.
Tring, and he gets off at the stop closest to the museum. He walks around back to the building where they're housed, smashes the window because he lost the glass cutter along the way.
Nuh-uh.
And he's like, I'll get it later. So
This
then he
dude-
smashes it with his elbow and then hops inside.
Amateur hour.
I don't know. Maybe it's so crazy it might just work.
No
In
one
the
would
end-
suspect a guy who orders a glass cutter and then just smashes the window with his elbow.
Exactly.
like,
That's
it's
the thing.
That's foolproof, actually.
I know. So in the end, he kind of just was like he loves these feathers and these birds so much. He just is so into it. He kind of like loses track of time, and in the end, he steals 299 birds.
No.
And he made it back home before anyone even had any idea what was going on. And
That's crazy. So he like went all in. It wasn't like I'll steal a couple of these and make some money. He's like, we're taking the
No.
fleet.
basically there was some left, but he takes all these, throws them into like a black trash bag, and then throws it over his shoulder like a hobo, and then hops back on the train.
Can you
And,
imagine being the museum coordinator or manager or whatever, and just walking in there and being like, "What just happened?"
There's glass on the
Because
floor,
I can't.
and all the birds are gone.
Like that would just be such a weird thing to stumble upon.
Hey, crazy things happen at the British Museum. People steal stuff. It is what it is.
Oh man.
Anyway, so months later, the detectives were on the case. They didn't suspect anything for quite a while because these were kind of stored back in a back area. They were in drawers, so they were
They
hidden
didn't
a little
even
bit.
see it. Yeah.
No. They're like, I don't know what the deal was. And it was difficult for them to solve, but then eventually the lead detective on this case found herself on Victorian salmon fly websites and discovered that someone was selling The same birds that were missing. Feathers from those same birds. And police went to confront him, and he was immediately arrested because he had just a bag of dead birds in his apartment.
Of course he did. And even if he hadn't, they could have been like, oh, yeah, flute player 1988. It all matches.
They're like, that seems pretty suspicious if you ask me. He's like, I don't know.
Flute player, he might as well have named it illegal bird feather salesman 1988.
He like signs up for a new account, a new eBay account, so they can't track him, and he goes like, Tring heist, bird skin retrieval.
They'll never catch me, feather thief. Dot flute player golden.
Dot flute player. That golden flute is mine. So some of the birds he stole were recovered. Oh wait, I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Don't worry.
Oh, we hear what? So he was immediately
don't
arrested.
Worry, I didn't hear it. Yeah.
And he was released with a court date. So come back, we'll talk about things.
Okay.
He got this lawyer. You know who Sacha Baron Cohen is?
Nope.
He's like an actor. He plays Borat, and he's in some stuff. Anyway, so his cousin is a psychiatrist who who convinced the court that since Edwin Rist has Asperger's, he was not aware of the gravity of his crimes. So to this day, he was released and he's never served any jail time.
Nuh-uh. He got away with it?
He got away with it. And some of the birds he stole were recovered, but most of them had their information tags removed, which leaves them useless for scientific study. So like it says the date they were collected and where they were collected from. So
they're
the type of research
worthless.
they're going to do. Yeah, it's just a cool bird at this point, which is not why the museum has these ones.
Yeah.
So he ended up selling some of the feathers and made thousands of dollars. And with that money, he bought a new flute.
He did it.
He did it.
Was it this dream flute?
I don't know if it was
it
his
the
dream
golden
flute.
one?
I'm sure it was.
Guy, wow.
Yeah.
What a creative way to problem solve.
Who would think to steal some dead birds to fund your flute?
Just that thought process, that whole thought process is a bit foreign to me. I don't know if I could venture down the same ideas that he did.
Well, maybe it's because that lifestyle is too much for you.
Yeah, that's got to be it. I just wasn't raised in that type of lifestyle, and I just don't. I don't have what it takes.
Yeah, that's
to
probably
be
a good
bird
thing.
Feather thief.
That's probably a good thing. They did track down some of the people that they're pretty sure bought the feathers, and most of the people just were like, "No, I never bought no feathers. What you talking about?"
You don't know. Yeah, what you talking about?
Eventually, one guy changed his mind and was like, "Hey, yeah, here's some of them back. I'll help you get them back."
Listen, it is what it is. I found this guy, Flute Player 1988, was selling me some feathers, and the temptation was too great.
And I had to buy it. I had to buy
Do you know what the
feather
moral
for
of this
hundreds of
story
dollars.
is? For me,
What is it? What is it?
don't trust a flute player. That's
Don't
it.
trust any flute players.
Exactly. Cut and dry.
Okay.
It's the classic. Is it Plato or Socrates? Oh, I don't remember.
I think that was Socrates. Yeah.
Socrates, that because he is a flute player and he committed a crime, all flute players commit crimes.
Socrates, he said it first.
Yep.
And then Galileo like stole it, and like you know how he is.
Oh,
He takes
was
credit
it Galileo?
for it. But no, it was Socrates, and then Galileo said it afterwards and tried to steal it because he thought it was such a wise thing.
I see. Yeah. That guy never had a wise thought in his life. Everything he taught was from. He was probably a flute player.
Probably. Galileo was a flute player. Next topic. So
Hey guys, today we're talking about Galileo's flute playing technique.
and how he was a flute player. He was great at it, but never trust him. All that telescope stuff, don't even think about it. Somebody else.
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm consistently derailing our
No,
conversation
it's okay.
this episode.
I love a good derailment. I just want to apologize to all the flute players. We're joking. Keep listening.
Why did we just get 200 one-star reviews? I
don't know.
The Flute Players United.
I got flute player 1989 gave us a 1 star, and then flautist 2001 gave us a 2 star.
I think
Yeah, just this flood of reviews. This is
I don't
wild.
know what that's about. I think Mallory played flute for like a year,
Okay.
if I remember right.
Just do me a favor and just make sure she doesn't listen to this episode.
Okay.
That's okay.
We'll title it "Mallory, Don't Listen to This One."
Okay. She's like, "How was podcast recording?" You're like, "Oh, we didn't do it. We're done.
Didn't
No
didn't
podcast
happen.
anymore. Not doing a podcast.
Show's over. Don't look into it.
Just stress me. Anyway, let's eat dinner. Okay. Okay, I'll finish up, but what's the big deal about these bird feathers being stolen? Because he stole almost $1 million worth of birds, even though some of them were recovered. Most of them don't have their scientific value anymore.
I would not have guessed it was that much. That's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
it was a lot of valuable dead birds. And so because of this, they can't learn things like the impact of DDT pesticides on the bird population or the rise of mercury in the ocean. And I don't know how they're able to determine that.
Yeah.
But you can't study it anymore because these birds are gone.
Because of that. That's holy cow. All for a golden flute. That's is honestly pretty crazy. This is a crazy story.
I'll tell you the funniest thing about this entire story is we'll link it below. But today you can watch a video of Edwin playing a beatbox flute version of Master of Puppets.
No, you can't.
It's very impressive, but it's so funny. He's like wearing like a black leather vest. It's like cool, but then you know who this guy is, and it makes
the description
it
of
so
the video
crazy.
just says, "You have no idea how many birds I had to steal in order to make this video."
It's about as metal as it gets.
I stole $1 million of bird feathers so I could beatbox this song for you on YouTube.
He actually, though, he goes under a different name. He changed his last name, so he
too
tried
much
to
shame.
hide. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
Edwin. I don't remember what his last name is, but we'll link it and you can watch it. And it's quite impressive. But knowing the background
hilarious.
is quite hilarious and a little bit sad. Mostly hilarious.
Can I just say, I just looked up some pictures. To be fair, I'm looking at some of these vintage Victorian salmon flies.
Yeah.
They're honestly pretty beautiful. Like, I kind of
seriously?
understand how someone could make one of these and then think, I don't think I'll fish this with this one. I might just keep it and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for all of you diehard fly fishermen that make your own flies,
And women.
excuse me,
Gotcha,
fly
I say
fisher
good.
women, forgive me for my earlier stance against the idea or concept of tying flies and not using them.
Yeah,
I
it's
get
an
it
art
now.
form.
They're
It's an art
beautiful.
form. But people do use substitute versions of the rare and exotic feathers that are illegal to have. They'll, dye other feathers or
Sure.
use
Faw feathers.
synthetic ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you want to learn more for the listener, there's this book called The Feather Thief by Kirk Wallace Johnson. And that's how I heard about it. I read this book a while ago. I've been wanting to do this topic for quite a while.
This is so good.
And there's a lot more to it. And he interviews Edwin, the first and only, I believe, interview that Edwin's ever given about it. It's very interesting. And actually, I just found out that the author is going to help turn the book into a TV series
Yes.
led by George Bush's daughter. So that's fun.
The perfect combo.
Jenna Bush Hager is doing a TV show about this. You've never heard of a more perfect combo.
No, never. It's like golfers and their carts. That wasn't my best one.
It's like a driver and a golf ball. It's like a flag and a 6-inch deep hole. You know?
There it is. That's the metaphor we were looking for. Can I just say, this was a fantastic topic.
Thank you.
It's
one of those ones that it writes itself.
Yeah, I was going to say, the whole story just bleeds learn me something topic.
It really does.
That's so funny. And my favorite part about the way you presented it is that, and maybe this was my fault, thinking back, but you let us just talk about fly fishing for like the first 10, 15 minutes. And I was just like, he's just talking about fly fishing. And I was like, that's an interest. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting history here, but that's the topic.
No, I wanted
dive
to
into this whole museum heist.
Yeah.
It's just executed, exquisite. I'm very satisfied with my time on this episode.
Good. 5 stars from you?
5, yeah, 6 even.
5 stars from Golfer 1997. Thank you for your review.
1 star from a variety of flautists.
You know what? This is probably not a good thing because now people that haven't reviewed the podcast yet are going to make their name something like Flautist, Flute Player 2000, and then they're going to rate us 1 star.
Our viewership's going to tank. Here's a formal request from your friends at the Learn Me Something studio. Don't do that. Absolutely make the flute joke. I'm all for it. But maybe consider 4 or 5 stars instead of 1.
Only if we've earned it, but no less than 5.
Yeah, give us what we're worth.
Come on.
On.
Do you have any questions before we wrap up?
I don't think so. That was just a good, high quality sit and listen story.
Good. Love it.
Yep.
Glad to hear. Here real quick. I messaged the author of this book, Kirk Wallace Johnson. I messaged him or his publicist like half a year ago, maybe a year ago. Never heard back. So I was like, okay. I was like,
were you going to ask him to be on the show?
I was like, maybe we could get him on here, but he's too busy with George Bush's family, I guess.
I don't know.
I'm not as famous as them.
Why do people keep assuming that we're not as important as the Bush family? I've heard it time and time again, and I'm over
There's so many things that are said about me that are just not true. Josiah's not as important as the Bush family. I don't know.
That's a t-shirt. T-shirt idea. Learn me something t-shirt. Hashtag just as important as the Bush family.
We'll see.
So many of these.
We gotta store up all these shirt ideas and
I know.
And really
I haven't
pump them
written
out
any
for
of
reals.
them down.
That's okay. I haven't either. We'll just. I don't know.
Move on
we'll
and
just
forget
say
about
it. And
it.
not do it.
Yeah, with the rest of the shirt ideas we've had.
Okay, that's about all I got. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, and if you are listening, welcome. And if it's your first time listening, we're so glad you're here. And if it's your manyth time listening, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
And special shout out to our patrons who keep this show running. And by that, I mean we just appreciate you. And that's it. And we're very thankful for what you do.
Very, very grateful that you put literal hard-earned dollars into funding this a little bit. So very, very grateful for all of our patrons.
Someday, as a patron, if you receive a mysterious but highly valuable feather in the mail, don't ask questions.
It's not from us. Wink,
Nope.
wink.
It's not from us. Okay, well, how are
Go
we
for
feeling?
it.
Is it my turn? Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Nah, go for it.
Okay,
I'm ready to learn.
awesome. I don't think this one's going to be too long. I feel, I feel like the last 6 episodes I've done really long topics, and that I'm all talk. This one might
Yes,
end up
this
being
was
really
my
long.
yeah. We'll see. This is my turn for a long topic.
Yeah. So what I bring to the table is just a heartwarming story. Have you heard the name? And it's not going to be helpful that I can't pronounce it. Sebastião Salgado. Are you familiar?
Let me think. No.
Okay. With your permission, I'm going to call him Sebastian. Here's the
Okay.
situation.
What's the
It's
situation?
spelled Sebastiao. Seems fairly straightforward, but there's a squiggly above the A.
Oh,
And if we're being
Portuguesa?
honest, what?
Portuguese? I don't know if that's how you say it.
It's Brazilian.
Sebastião?
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how the squiggly above the A changes the properties of the pronunciation, and so that's the issue.
Call him Seabass. That's like a nickname for somebody named Sebastian.
Okay,
Seabass?
we can go with that.
Yeah.
Sebastian, if you're listening to this, forgive me, but also welcome. It's very cool that you're listening. All right, Sebastian.
What are the odds?
Seriously, crazy.
Maybe he's a guy who just
coincidence.
Googles his own name every day, every morning. New hit for Seabass. Pops up, listens to the episode.
Yeah, welcome.
Cool.
Leave us a
Come on
5-star
the
review
show.
and make a flute joke.
I just invited him on the show. Should I? Is that a good thing? Should I have done that? I don't know anything about this guy. He could be a murderer.
Yo,
for all I
yeah,
know.
no, we like this guy.
Okay.
And this is
Okay,
a
that's good.
heartwarming story.
Oh, good. Goodness.
Grew up in Brazil. Okay, I think he was born. Yeah, he was born in the 40s. And he grew up. His dad owned, or his parents owned this farm, like a ranch farm in Brazil. Almost 2,000 acres, so big old farm, and it was just a beautiful, luscious land. And his dad ranched it and everything. Just sounds like peak place to grow up, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so fast forward to the year 1959, he decides, you know what? I love the ranch. Well, actually, I don't know if he decides this.
He says it
He
out
goes
loud.
to
He
a
writes it
boarding
in his
school.
monthly newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. So, Seabass, he heads out. In 1959, he's 15 years old, and he heads out to this boarding school. And it's still in Brazil and stuff, just a little ways over. And so where he grew up was super, super rural, hard to get to, unpaved roads, that kind of thing. Kind of drives into the city, goes to this boarding school.
Yeah.
And he meets his wife, or who will become his wife, Lelia. That's what we're going to go with. There is other squigglies in her name, but I've just, executive decision. That's how I think it's pronounced.
Lelia?
Lelia. Lelia. With a squiggly, I believe. I don't remember.
So, there's a
I didn't
squiggly
put the
somewhere.
squiggly. Yeah, I didn't
Lelia
put
and
it in my notes.
Seabass.
Exactly. So they get married. They fall in love. Apparently, she was intrigued by him because he wore the same clothes every single day.
Ooh,
But they were
that's
always
husband material
clean.
right there. Oh.
Exactly. But they were always really clean, and he never smelled or anything. So she was like, how do you do this? Turns out his dad at some point had bought hundreds of feet of this certain type of cloth. And he just turned them all. So Seabass goes to boarding school, and he has 15 sets of this shirt and 15 pairs of the
He's
exact
like a
same
cartoon character. He's like a cartoon character.
Exactly.
He only wears the same outfit.
You only see him, and this is consistent through his life. He generally just kind of wears this one outfit.
Okay.
This does not pertain to the story even a little bit, except for the fact that it's a fun fact.
It is very interesting. I feel like maybe it's
Yes.
a little character development. Maybe
Yeah,
could be
a little bit.
Okay.
Get a little peek into his life. And so eventually they fall in love. They decide to get married, and they do some political stuff for a while. get involved in Brazil things at the time, and then then
Run
they
for
decide, you know what, let's
president, probably run for city council, run for
no, I think it was like
the law. Oh, run for
I don't
the
know
law.
much about the history of Brazil, actually, if we're being honest.
either.
But I think it's like protests and left wing versus right wing type stuff.
So
General like
they're
unrest.
okay. That's what they're
was
involved in. Is like protests.
Yeah, loosely, yeah.
Okay,
And then they
okay.
decide, you know what, now's
sure.
a good time to get out of Brazil. So they move to
Activists.
Paris.
Got
Were you saying something? I couldn't hear you.
it. No, I just said, are they activists?
they're activists if I've ever heard of one.
Okay.
Moved to Paris, years 1969. He becomes an economist, and they're making like pretty solid money. If I remember right, she was in architecture. So they were doing good. They made good money. They had the fancy car. They had the nice place. Then one day, she decides she's going to buy a camera, and that camera, she's just going to use it for like architecture pictures and stuff to kind of just help with her firm and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So she buys it. It's just a fun old camera, and he's like, "Ooh, seems interesting. Let me try." And so he takes it, and he just kind of falls in love with it. And he's just taking pictures left and right. And so he decides, you know what? Forget it. I don't want to be an economist anymore. I'm going to become a photographer.
Wow.
So, as the story goes, he just knocks on the door of like a publishing company. They open up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a photographer now. I want to take some pictures for you." And they kind of like laugh
They're like,
at him.
no,
and
you're an
stuff.
economist. I know you.
You don't follow your passions.
Come on.
So they kind of laugh at him. They're like, "Okay, you can't just show up here and say you're a photographer." But they're like, "You know what? Let's give you a shot. Here's a couple stories we're covering. If you want to go take some pictures just for fun, show us what you got. Sure, go for it. See what happens." He's like, "That's all I needed." So he takes the camera, and he goes out, and he starts photographing these stories that they gave him, and they're like kind of stories of like human condition type things. So like social photography, political photography, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
He brings them back, and publishes is just like in Spider-Man, He's going through them, and he's like, "This is fine, this is fine, this is fine." Nothing to write home about. And then he sees one, and he's like, "Wait, I actually really like this. I'm going to publish this." And that was Seabass's way in. He's now an official photographer. He did it. He did the thing.
He had like the one photo that started his career.
Exactly. Yeah. So he tried them out. They liked it. And that kickstarts his career. And so he does it. He becomes a photographer, and he actually becomes very, very famous. He takes black and white photography, traveling all across the world and taking just photos of like the human condition. Lots of social photos, lots of photos of, there's different photos of like the workforce or like people being oppressed, and like politically active photos trying to showcase different things. And
Sure.
takes a lot of like tribal photos, goes out to tribes in like third world countries, that kind of thing, all over the world. Eventually, he ends up winning like most major photography awards. So this guy is, as far as photography goes, this guy is about as successful as one can be.
Really?
Yep. Now, this topic isn't about photography. This was all backstory to lead into the main girth of my topic. And it all starts with, he goes on one trip to do his thing, take some photos, and some really bad, like really violent, really horrible things happen, and it just kind of messes him up. Apparently he got like really sick. He was like psychologically not okay, emotionally not okay. It's affecting him physically. And so he gets back from this, and he's just like, "I'm done. Can't do it anymore. I'm like over photography. I've seen things I don't want to see, that kind of thing. And so him and his wife were like, what are we going to do? And this is where our story starts. Is Seabass decides to purchase his parents' farm and move back home for a while. I believe he's going to just go back and just run the ranch for a while and just like, switch things up, slow it down, just go and do like, good old-fashioned manual work, right?
Yeah.
So his parents agree. He buys the property, all like almost 2,000 acres, and he moves back in the mid-90s. And when he gets home, what does he find? Take a guess.
A big rat.
A big rat?
Yeah, but
no.
the kind that like snitched on the mob and now he's hiding out. But he's a big guy.
Solid guess, but entirely incorrect. What he finds...
Orange juice factory.
He finds an orange juice factory. You nailed it.
Okay, I'm ready.
I don't know how you managed to guess it.
I'm good.
No, he gets home, and he finds that the grounds that he just purchased, the ranch he purchased, all the acreage is just decimated. And so what had happened was apparently this was a really common thing that happened in Brazil in that time, is that his parents, doing what most of the farmers in the area decide to do, is they start cutting down trees on their property. So they would cut down all the trees, and they would sell the wood, and they would burn the rest. And then in place, they would plant African grass, which is kind of an invasive species.
Okay.
And they would import that and plant it to feed their livestock. So essentially what was a luscious, beautiful mass forest was turned into just this dead, decimated area. No trees anywhere. All the animals, all the birds, all the bugs, all dead or gone or moved on. And in place of all that, you just have this like African grass here and there. And the African grass takes over, and it just like decimates everything, leaves nothing left. And then the soil gets really bad, and the African grass gets bad. And so he purchases this land. They move home in the 90s and discover that what once was luscious forest land has now become about 0.5% of that land had tree coverage. So
Yikes.
like a tree here or there, maybe. The rest of it is just like practically desert nothingness in the middle of Brazil.
Okay.
And this is a common thing. Like this was a bigger problem in Brazil, is that a lot of this kind of stuff happened, and this whole area just kind of got decimated, and then they entered into this drought, partially because of this whole issue, and things are just spiraling downhill. And so they're like, he's feeling unwell, life isn't good for him, he's struggling, and his wife is like, you know what, let's just do something good. Let's just do, for a little bit, let's just do something in the world that matters, and let's just see if we can bring a little bit of life back to the land. So Seabass is like, you know what, I think this is not a direct quote, this is a paraphrase of something he probably never said. But Seabass says, you know what, I think this is going to be really good for my soul. I think this is the kind of healing I need. Let's just do it. Let's see what it would take to kind of just restore some of this land. So that's his backstory, his life, his purchasing of the land, and his coming home story. And now
Wait,
we enter into...
Can I guess?
Yeah.
He's going to make a golf course.
No, but that would have been a hilariously timed topic.
Okay.
Or a very timely topic.
Well, I'm out.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm in. I'm captivated. What's he going to do?
You better be in. Well, what he does is he's able to connect with this guy named Renato de Jesus.
Okay.
And this dude is
The Ronaldo of Jesus.
yeah, I don't know what Renato means, but
Ronaldo.
the second half you can get.
Yeah. Okay.
And this dude, Renato, is a foresting engineer, which sounds like a pretty cool job, honestly.
That actually, I was just about to say, that's a very cool
Yeah.
job title.
Just like if someone asked, or if I asked someone, "Hey, what do you do?" and they said forest engineer, I would be like, "You're the coolest person maybe I've ever met."
And then if he like goes and does bring your parent to class day and like they tell about their
Oh yeah,
job, he's like, "Have
Oh,
you ever
yeah.
seen the Lorax? That's me."
that's me. Perfect. And so they're able to connect with this guy, and he is working as like a replant. Apparently, they had a law for like mines and stuff that whatever they destroyed, they had to be willing to like replant. And I think it was because this deforestation was such an issue there. Anyway, so he was working for one of these companies doing that, helping them replant. So
Okay.
he meets with him. He's like, "Yeah, I'll come out and I'll check out the land and we'll just see what we see." He
Yeah,
comes
he's a
out
pro at this.
exactly. He comes out and he's like, "You know what? Bad news. I've got good news and I've got bad news. The bad news is the soil is dead, like completely dead. There's not nutrients in it. It's just like dead, deceased ground, which I didn't know soil could die, but I mean, apparently it loses its ability to sustain.
Yeah.
And just over the years of drought and cutting the trees down and this invasive grass, it just like killed everything. He was like, "That's the bad news. The good news is if you're willing to put in a significant amount of work and spend some serious money, we can bring it back." And so Seabass and Lelia are like, "We're doing it. You know what? We're here to do good. We want to see restoration to the land. We're doing it." So they make this plan. And here's the interesting part of this topic. I mean, the whole thing's interesting. And I think this idea of reforestation is fascinating, and I didn't realize that so much goes into it. But the strategizing that they do it reminds me of like The Martian. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah,
Or read
yeah.
the book?
Yep,
Where he's
just the
trying to
movie.
like cultivate his little like green room in the middle of his space hut, you know? He's
Yeah,
trying to do
yeah,
all
yeah.
this science to like make it possible. That actually happens, and it's just not on Mars. It's down here.
Really?
Yeah. And so so they make this plan, and they're like, "All right, step one, phase one of the plan." So this is now 1998. He's like, "We need to hire some people, and we need to get to work, and first thing we have to do, we have to get rid of the African grasses." And so
Get the scissors.
yeah, get the scissors. So literally, they hire like 20-ish workers, a couple dozen of workers, and
Arts and crafts people with their scissors.
exactly. They go to all the retirement centers and are like, "Hey, is anyone here doing crafts? Come with us.
I know you're retired. If you're into crafts, I got a project for you.
We need you." No, they hire like 20-ish workers, and they spend like just about a year. They literally just use manual metal tools, and they get rid of all of that. They spend all that time just getting rid of the grass. So anywhere they see the grass, they're just like digging it out, chopping it down, like just getting rid of it. And so that was phase one, because when phase two hits, they need to be able to hit the ground running. And so they spend all this time doing this, making things happen. 1999 hits, the rain season comes, and they start planting like crazy. So this is phase two. So Renato is able to use his connections, and he's able to get a donation of 100,000 seedlings. And not just any seedlings. This is part of the strategy that I find super fascinating, is they got a specific type or a selection of types of trees that would accomplish a specific purpose. And the purpose was to grow really fast and die young. And the reason they opted for that is because they needed to quickly change the landscape so that they can bring in these other things that the soil needs and animals and stuff need, and then they can start focusing on cultivating trees that grow slower but last a really long time.
Okay. Quick then long plan.
Yeah. So whole just fascinating strategy that I didn't know any of this was a thing, and so that's why I think it's fun. So the immediate goals for these seedlings is to plant them all, have them grow really fast, and the purpose of that is to provide shade, and it's to trap moisture, and it's to give shelter to small insects and birds. And they were all designed, or they designed which trees and which seedlings they would use in order to give the soil the maximum amount of nitrogen whenever the trees die. So the trees are meant to grow really fast and die young, and when they die, they release all this nitrogen into the soil, and that's
good for the soil, which is good for the new plants.
That's one of the things. Yeah, that's the big thing the soil needs for revival is all this nitrogen infused in it and released in it to make it possible. So they make it happen. It's 2 of them, and then it's a small group of 20, 25 workers, and they're just like, you know what? I was a photographer, architect my whole life. We're just going to flip the script, and we're going to invest the majority of our lives just fixing this land.
Wow.
And so that's what they did. So 1999 hits, and they plant 100,000 seedlings. They plant all of them. Which is crazy. That's a lot of seedlings. And they just work their way up the valley, and they plant seedlings every 10 feet, which ended up being, I can't remember the term they used. They had a term for the amount of land. I can't remember what it is, but it equates to about 2.5 acres. And so every 2.5 acres, roughly, there would be 2,000 seedlings planted.
Okay.
And so that's the plan. They're 180 switch. They were living this luxurious life. They were famous. They were winning awards. And now
they were still in Paris at that point?
No, they've moved back to Brazil, to his home. Remember?
I mean, before Brazil? They moved Paris back to Brazil?
Oh, yeah. Yep, they lived in Paris. They were living the high life, super famous, lots of money. And then they moved back to Brazil to so from Paris, big city, to rural area, hard to get to type thing. And they just start planting. And this is their whole lives. And the first year, after they planted, only 40,000 of the trees survived. So 60% died. And it made Sebastian sick. He said he was sick for weeks because they had just kind of...
My trees.
Yeah. Apparently they had dug the holes too tightly. And so that's why a lot of the trees didn't survive.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh man, 60% of everything we just worked so hard to do died. But they had 40,000 trees, which was something. And so they keep going. They keep planting. They keep nurturing. And the next year, only 20% die. Which brings us into phase 3 of the plan. So phase 1, get rid of the hire a crew, get rid of the African grass. Phase 2 is plant these specific types of trees that are going to grow really fast and provide some immediate environmental necessities to help revive the soil. And phase 3 is they have to protect these trees with everything they got. Because the trees, one article I read said the trees are like little kids. In order for them to grow healthy and survive, you have to nurture them and protect them and care for them and stuff. Yeah. So phase 3 is they're just out there constantly, ruthlessly trying to protect these trees. So they build fire roads. They're constantly fighting invasive species, like getting in there, digging stuff out that could invade and harm the trees. They're doing all these traps and workarounds to make sure that the ants stay away so they're not like chewing on the leaves.
And they're treating them like actual kids, right? Like,
yeah, they're teaching them
yeah.
how to read, how to walk,
how to eat solid foods, and
yeah, exactly. You get
be
it.
kind. Yeah.
And so this forms. Eventually, they form what they call the Instituto Terra,
Earth
which is
Institute.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I don't know any Portuguese.
Okay, I was like, oh wow. So they form this foundation, which allows them essentially to start getting donations and getting support and just making this thing happen. And
It's like
because
Patreon.
of this, yeah. So their partnership with Renato comes to an end. They had like a contract with them that ends, and so then they're kind of left on their own with it. And so what they do is they make their own nursery and they start producing seedlings on their own, on their property, and they master keeping them alive. So they get the number down to like only 10% die each year as opposed to the 60% that it started with. So they're figuring things out. They're getting donations. They're getting support from around the world. Robin Williams apparently funded like a little theater there that people
you know
could
what?
go say.
You know who we talked about last episode?
Robin
Williams. He came up when we were talking about Coco, right?
Yeah. The guy keeps.
Is this a Robin Williams podcast now?
I think so. Welcome to Rob Me Williams. Yeah, this is actually just a Robin Williams fan club.
Okay. Wow. So everybody's finding out about this.
Yeah. So worldwide, they're getting support and donations and stuff, and the reason is because people are seeing it work, and I don't think anyone's really ever seen success like this before. I mean, it was like the ground for thousands and thousands of acres was just pronounced dead.
Yeah.
And they're just by sheer like willpower and effort bringing it back, and it's taking so much money, and but they're just like, this is our project, this is what we're diving into. And so they're getting support all over the place. If there was ever time where they didn't have enough money, Salgado would just fund the project himself. At one point he sold like a really famous camera of his that was like an older camera that the company had given him. And he sold it for over $100,000 and used that to plant another 30,000 trees. So he even says in an article something like, it's crazy, sold one tiny camera and can all of a sudden plant 30,000 more trees. And it works. They're able to revive this whole land, and it's taken forever, like 20 years worth of work. But if you go online, you should go online real quick and look up pictures, because there are before and afters, and it's just like stunning. It's honestly the coolest. It doesn't even look like it's the same place because it's such a night and day difference. It was like, isn't that crazy?
18 years apart.
Yeah. So describe
That is wild.
describe what you're seeing to the people.
Okay, so basically on the left, hold on, let me pull it up a little bigger. On the one photo, which is from 2001, I've lost it. I'm gone. Okay, here it is. From the photo on 2001, you see like the house, and there's a couple little buildings. It's like a little compound.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like eastern Montana, or it just looks like plains.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like here in Arizona. It looks like a desert, like high desert almost.
Yeah,
There's a couple
exactly.
trees. And nothing. Dirt, brown. And then you go 18 years later, it literally looks like you can't touch the ground without being squished between two trees.
Isn't that crazy? It looks like it goes from looking like Arizonian desert to Amazon rainforest. And that's what they devoted their lives to for 20
my
years, just making it
goodness.
happen.
That
And it's
is
just like
wild.
the coolest. People have learned so much from it, and they've developed all these new methods of like reviving land and bringing, reforestation kind of stuff. All from this one process of this one couple who's just like, you know what, enough's enough. Let's just fix it. Let's just bring it all back. And even crazy stuff happens that they learn about because of what they were doing. So they learned, they started realizing that full creeks that he remembered from his childhood started just coming back. It was
Really?
just desert, but now these full creeks that he used to remember started coming back. And it's like, I was like 5 gallons a minute or something. Like a
5
big,
gallons of water in this creek. A whole 5 gallons are back
5 whole gallons. So, no.
per minute. So it's like a little.
I'm seeing now that I maybe got that got that wrong. It's 5 gallons per something.
Second, maybe?
Yeah, that probably makes more sense.
I think gallons per second is a metric they use.
Sure. But it's just like this creek just comes back full force, and they're like, well, why did that happen? And so they start, they're doing their research on that, and they learn from this whole process, this whole experience, that they learn this new technique that you can fight droughts just by bringing trees back in the way they did. Because they learned that they would plant trees at the heads of creeks and springs, and the trees would make the soil healthier, like we talked about earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
But that healthy soil absorbs rain a ton, and dead soil rejects it. So healthy soil, the water can sink in and stay in one spot for a lot longer, and dead soil, it can't sink in, so the water runs a lot quicker, and it either runs back into the seas way too quickly, or it evaporates, and the water doesn't actually do anything.
Okay, that
And
makes sense.
yeah, and the branches and leaves of the trees also significantly slow down how fast the rain falls. So instead of when it's deserty, the rain hits all at once and then just dries out really quickly. Instead, the rain hits all these trees and it's a lot slower to drop, and it drips off the leaves instead of falling straight down. And then when it does fall, it hits the soil, which like absorbs it, and that whole process they learned just kind of like resurrects these rivers and creeks and springs that had run dry. And I think that's so cool. So in
That's
this area
wild.
of Brazil where things are just dry and like there's a horrible drought, everything's bad, and like a good chunk of it looks like this deserty plain area. This one section of land that this one couple worked on so hard has like waterfalls and big flowing streams and creeks and water dripping off the trees and big luscious trees, and everything's green and beautiful. And it's like, it makes me feel like it's like some Garden of Eden in the middle of all this wasteland. And I
And
think that's
they didn't
very
even
cool.
expect some of the stuff to happen, right? Like the water. They were just trying to get
they were
plants to
just
grow,
like,
and
we just want to bring the trees and the plants back. Yeah.
they got a whole
And so-
ecosystem out of the deal.
Seriously, an entire ecosystem. And the whole thing was designed like, we need to design this in a way that keeps certain bugs out and certain bugs in.
Yeah.
And so they picked trees super carefully. And now it's just this lush rainforest. So I'll end with the current day where they're at over the last 20-ish years. They've planted over 2 million trees.
Whew.
And where when they started, 0.5% of the ground still had coverage, and where they're at now, only 10% of the land still needs to be restored. So they've taken it from 0.5% up to 90% coverage. The soil now has been restored to like a vibrant state that supports new life and is totally, completely different than what it used to be. And all the animals returned, which I think is super cool. Like, they just like slowly over time. There's one I can't remember which bird it was, but there's a interview with him where they're like driving on his property, and he's like, "Hey, look, there's that bird's coming back. That bird's starting to come back. That's cool." Like, these birds he remembers from his childhood that were just totally gone are now returning. So 172 species of birds have returned to the area. 6 of those were in danger of extinction. 33 species of mammals have returned, and 2 of those were on the very edge of extinction.
Wow.
15 species of amphibians have returned, 15 species of reptiles, and almost 300 species of plants have all returned and been restored just in this one couple's goal.
That is
So that's
wild.
it. That's all I got. Mostly, for it to be truly impressive, you really kind of have to look up a picture. So if
Yeah,
you're
you do.
listening,
We'll link
definitely stop and look up the picture, because it's just the craziest. It looks like a different part of the world. Like, one part of the world.
It looks like they moved the house.
Seriously, like the first picture looks like it's in South Africa or something, or like Arizona, and the second part looks like it's deep in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there I go. So I guess the moral of my
crazy.
story is, if you see good that can be done, just do it. And this one couple made a massive difference in the world and kind of started this movement where a lot of people are now starting to do similar things in their areas.
I got a question for you. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
the answer. Do you know how much money it took overall to do this?
I don't. It had to have been in the millions, though.
Yeah, over 20 years with... It was mostly just them, other than the 20 workers they hired at the beginning, or did they have other help too?
Eventually, I believe most likely they added help. I did read something. I don't remember the exact number. But it was something along the lines of it. There were like $500,000 in operating costs per year.
Oh, man.
Between equipment and trees and paying the people.
That's wild.
So
millions and millions.
Yeah. I did read, again, I don't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere around $2 million of their own money is what they dumped into this. And that doesn't include any of the donations or help from government or, other famous people.
Yeah.
So my guess is it was, if I had to guess, I would say well over $10 million.
You ever heard of Explain a Film Plot Badly?
Yeah.
I got one for this. It's
Hit me.
people pay money for random couple in Brazil to update their landscaping. Well, people pay millions. That is crazy.
Think
about that part. What, you thought I was going to say what?
Oh, I thought you were going to say have you ever heard Explain a Film Plot Badly? That's what you just did with this story.
That was the longest plot I've ever heard. No, I just thought, people pay millions for a couple in Brazil to get nicer landscaping. That's the badly explained plot version of this story.
The poorly explained.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of
yeah.
work. They've retired now. There's still a lot of work to be done. Not on their property, but I remember reading the area they were in, the area of forest, the amount of land that got decimated in that same way, from what I read, is like the size of South Africa. So like a massive amount of land was kind of just destroyed, cutting down the trees and selling them off and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it could happen again, or it could reforestation in areas like that could happen again.
Sure.
Is
Yeah,
the
if they
idea.
would be willing to expand it and do that across the whole area, oh, that'd be super cool.
That's wild. It
That's
makes
what
me
I got.
wonder because there's so much just driving from Montana down to Arizona, there's so much empty space
Yeah.
and so much just nothing in the American West that I wonder if things like this, if you put enough, just hypothetically, if you could put enough money into it, could you transform the landscape enough to like make it vibrant like that?
Make
over
it
here,
luscious
too.
and yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's like weather requirements, like heat but I'm sure you could also just choose different seedlings and stuff to
I have no idea. Like,
make
could you
it work.
plant? Yeah, yeah, whatever. If there's like a dense forest on, I don't know, nearby, just take those same types of plants and put them in the flat plains. I have no idea. It's very interesting to
kinda
think about,
interesting.
though, like how much this country could change in given a few hundred years.
Seriously.
Like, what's South Dakota going to look like in 300 years? In 3
Yeah.
years.
In
3 years
three-
might be like the Amazon.
What was exactly? He did say, I don't remember if it was him or his wife who said this, but they did say something like, this is what we can do, or like the human life is so short compared to like how the progression of the world and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's like, we did this in 20 years. Imagine what this could look like over 200 or 300 years. Like,
Yeah.
the process they're starting now could transform like a good chunk of that part of the world, and by the time we're old or gone. It's very interesting.
It is very interesting. Yeah, by the time we're old, we might be chasing like on a jaguar hunt in Iowa.
I hope. If we're
I feel like
we're
Iowa
elderly-
has pretty nice soil. How about like Nevada?
Nevada. Okay. Well, let's make a pact. If there are ever jaguars alive and well in Nevada, and you and I are both living, we have to go hunt them.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting a knife out now. I'm slicing my
A blood
hand.
pact.
Okay,
Pirates
you
of the
ready?
Caribbean
I'm gonna
style?
just throw it on my phone.
Okay.
You too? You're doing it
Okay.
too?
Yep.
Okay.
Did it.
Okay. Jaguar hunt in Nevada when we're 80.
Can't wait. All right, Josiah.
There you go.
That was still pretty long. This is shorter. This is like 20 to 30 minutes shorter than what we've been doing, episode lengthwise. So I
Yeah.
guess it was a little shorter.
You know what? There's no rules. We do what we
No
want.
rules. We can do what we want.
People can listen if they want. But we're going to talk, you know?
Why don't you give the people a reason, or tell them why they should vote for you?
Oh, I would love to. I talked about the story of Edwin Rist and the heist in Tring in England, and how he stole almost $1 million worth of birds and bought a flute with it. And really, the huge lesson here, never trust a flautist.
Never trust a flautist. Okay, and I think you should vote for me because I just told a good old classic, heartwarming, uplifting story of people that changed the world for the better. And I think that that's a good thing to talk about. So vote for it.
That is a good
That's what I
thing.
got. Okay, and do you want to tell them
yeah.
about the punishment?
Oh, yeah. So we've decided that the punishment for this episode, whoever loses this, has to do another week of the podcaster's early morning routine. So whoever loses this next one will be doing this early morning routine for 2 weeks straight, getting up at 5, which might be
Yeah.
a great thing, but it's going to be
Maybe.
very difficult.
Possibly life-changing. Yeah, so
Possibly.
we're both doing that punishment for this week because we tied, and that is them's the rules of the Learn Me Something podcast. But
It's written
we're
in
going
stone.
double or nothing for this episode.
Well, double or 1 week. Double or one.
Double or
Single.
50%?
Double or single.
Perfect.
That's what they call it in golf.
Yeah. Oh, one last golf. Love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. You got final stuff? I'm trying to think if I
got
have any
nothing.
final things. Any announcements? Oh, here's a fun thing. If you have not heard about this, the 1,000 Push-Up Club, that's always still going. 1,000 Push-Up Club is if you do 1,000 push-ups in 1 week, you let us know.
Yeah.
We will send you a verified Learn Me Something Incorporated e-certificate, and you join henceforth forevermore the Push-Up Club, 1,000 Push-Up Club. So we've got
It's
a couple
exclusive?
members.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very exclusive. You can, we've got it for all members listening. We've got a meeting coming up, so I've got everybody's RSVPs for that. It's in
Yep.
this one is actually in Brazil, so we'll have to try and make a stop over to the ranch.
Yeah, it's a conference. We're bringing in someone who does a lot of push-ups. Don't want to reveal the keynote speaker too early.
Yeah, but it's gonna be good. Yeah, I think that's all I got. 1,000
All right.
Push-Up Club if you want. Join that.
Yeah.
Instantly, you got to do this right now. You got to go vote.
Don't
it's
even think,
what
go
makes this
vote.
podcast. Just do it. It's going to take like 10 seconds. Thank you for voting. We love it when people vote, except for when we tie. But that's okay. Appreciate when you do vote anyway.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Okay, let's wrap this sucker up.
Okay. Sounds wonderful.
Larry, do your thing.